What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the channel. Today we're going to be continuing on making a deck list for every leader leading up to the launch of Star Wars Unlimited. Today we are going to be going over Darth Vader, how I enjoy playing Darth Vader, the colors I play, my deck list obviously, and then what I would maybe sub in, switch out, stuff like that, pros and cons, and kind of give you guys the idea of how to play or how I play Darth Vader, because in my opinion Darth Vader is very good, but he does have some cons because of other decks out there. If you guys are enjoying this, let me know who you guys want me to do next as far as the next deck list and the next leader I should cover. And we're going to go ahead and go over Darth Vader here and then do a couple of matches with Darth Vader using the deck list that I'm showing here. And if I make any changes, I'll be showing in the description of those matchups what changes I have made. Now, getting right into it here, Darth Vader adds a leader ability for an action and cost of 1. If you have played a villainy unit this phase, you can spend the 1 and you can do 1 damage to a unit and deal 1 damage to a base. So I would say you're going to be doing damage to your opponent's base whenever you use this, but the dealing 1 damage can be used in a multitude of different ways, and I think that that's what makes Vader so unique. You're going to see in the deck that there are a couple of cards on our side that we're going to want to have get defeated, and you can actually use Vader to do so if other players are trying to kind of play around, trying to defeat those units and spending them and stuff like that, and I'll go over that later. But yeah, you can do a damage to either one of your guys or your opponent's guys, depending on what best suits the situation, but it's going to allow you to ping the opponent's base and kind of get around certain things. Also, it's really good to kind of get rid of shields as well. If you have just an extra resource laying around, you've played a villainy unit, and there's an opponent on the other side that has a shield, you can just use this to get rid of a shield. It kind of makes it so you can kind of control the board a little bit more, because in my opinion, the best way to play Vader is controlling the board up until you get the point of 7 resources, or just getting Vader out there, because then you can use the tools within the deck to really control the board, make sure your opponent has nothing, and then you start swinging into the base and kind of going for the win. So Darth Vader at that point, he's kind of different than other aggression decks where they want to go as fast as possible. This deck still wants to go fast, but the thing is that it doesn't have the capability of going as fast as those decks. So when it's a mirror match of aggression, as in like if you're going up against like a Leia aggression deck or Sabine aggression, you have to really play that control game to kind of get through the initial onslaught of the units coming your way. So that's one of the things that kind of makes Vader unique in aggression, but like that's just kind of how it is. And then as a leader unit, when he attacks, he may deal 2 damage to a unit, and this is also good in kind of controlling the board and getting rid of things. You can swing into something that has maybe too much HP for you to take out, but then you can do the extra 2 damage to take them out, or use the extra 2 damage to take out other small units that are on the board to make sure you're not just getting hit repeatedly. It's another way that Vader kind of tries to control the board and make sure that he can kind of dictate how the flow of the match is going and then take out the opponent's base. Now hopping right into our base, I do like to play Vader with command, and I'll kind of explain why in a little bit. But as far as the base I play the energy conversion lab, mainly because of its epic ability. The ability to be able to give one of your units with 6 or less cost ambush at any point could be very useful, and again, controlling the board. So if there are things that, like, if you think that you can kind of get like a stranglehold of the game by making sure the opponent has no enemies, no units on the board anymore, like I just go ahead and I use ambush and kind of get rid of that unit, because it's just good to make sure that, again, you are kind of controlling the board. Make sure your opponent has as little units on the board as possible so you can get to the point where you can kind of take over when Vader enters the field, right? So you could also go ahead and you can play Command Center Echo Base if you want that 30 HP base, but I think that the ambush ability of this base is just very good and can serve you very well in kind of, again, controlling the game. Now getting into the units, we're going to start off with the ground units here, and I'm going to kind of go over each one, and then it's going to kind of go over why I like to play Vader Command as my go-to Vader colors, right? So we have Death Star Stormtrooper here. It's just a 1 cost 3/1. It's just has good damage output. Obviously, it can get killed almost immediately, but people might be afraid to attack into it because it is strong enough to pretty much take out almost every other low-cost unit. So it might stay on the field a little bit longer than people might expect. So it's always good to just get some damage, or maybe if you want to clear out something on the opponent's side early on, you can just give up your Stormtrooper and then kind of take off something of their side, right? Hopping into the next unit here, we have the First Legion Snowtrooper. Now, this works very well with Vader because, again, Vader has the ability to put damage on your opponent units, right? And this, the ability of the Snowtrooper here is while attacking a damaged unit, this unit gets +2/+0 and it gains overwhelm. So you can use Vader in and this together to really take advantage of that, right? You ping something on the opponent's side for 1, and then you're going up to a 4/3, and you have overwhelm. So you can potentially do extra damage to the base. Even if you have to lose this, again, you can go ahead and try to get rid of things on your opponent's base, on the opponent's side, and kind of go from there. But First Legion Stormtrooper has some good synergy with Darth Vader. I played Admiral Pyatt, captain of the Executor, mainly because you get the ambush on units that cost 6 or more. If your opponent lets you keep this on the board, then you can kind of just play down big things late game. And again, Vader is kind of not trying to get to the point where you have 10 resources, but like you have to get to 7 to really use this deck effectively. And there are ways to kind of get to that point earlier than your opponent. But again, the deck list that I'm kind of showing you is a deck list more so to play against other aggression decks. There are other cards in this that I will be adding in depending on my matchup, but this is kind of like trying to go up against things that like decks that are really fast, and that's where this deck kind of struggles a little bit. For Vader, when you're going up against Leia and Sabine, they're so fast, you have to kind of play a perfect game to kind of get around the speed of their decks. But having Admiral Pyatt in the mid to late game to be able to drop your 6 or more to kind of control the board, like I've been saying, like that's like the main focus of the thing, to take out other opponents' units. This is a good way to go ahead and do that because you can attack when you play these bigger units. Snowtrooper Lieutenant, when played, you may attack an Imperial unit. It's +2/+0. It's pretty much a staple if you're going to play Imperial cards. It just gives you an attack while playing a card. So you get to play a card and attack in one action. It's just good value. Also, you get to power up your Imperial units when doing so. Super Laser Technician is one of those cards that is viable for Vader in trying to get him out faster than your opponent. Super Laser Technician, when defeated, you get to put this into play as a resource, and it's ready. So that's really good. The thing is, too, is that sometimes playing against opponents that have the ability to suspend your units might try to do that early on your Super Laser Technician to make it so you can't use its ability to ramp up and get Vader out quickly. But Vader has the ability to do 1 damage to your own unit. So what I like to do if they're trying to play around Super Laser Technician, I'll go ahead and I'll use Vader to pop my own unit to get that resource because, again, getting Vader out as soon as possible is like the key to this deck. General Veers, I'm playing 3 of. You could probably drop that down to 2, honestly. It just powers up your other Imperial units. It gives them +1/+1. It's very good, but the thing is like playing 3 might clog up your deck. You might be someone wanting to resource. So 3 might be too much, but 2 definitely. I think General Veers is very good in this deck. In Vader, I don't always play Cell Block Guard, but when I'm playing against aggression units, aggression leaders and stuff like that, decks that want to go fast, I tend to play Cell Block Guard to kind of hold off a little bit as much as the damage to my base as I can, right? Because again, we are playing energy conversion lab, and like 25 HP, it can get scary when going up against Sabine or Leia or anything like that, right? So I have the Cell Block Guards in there for Sentinel for that reason, to kind of slow down my opponent's attacks on my base. And yes, they have Saboteurs in their deck and stuff like that, but early game, if you can get this down, certain things might not have Saboteur, and you can try to live as long as possible, right? I have Grand Moff Tarkin in this deck. I play 2 of him. When played, search the top 5 cards of your deck and add up to 2 Imperial cards, reveal them, and add them to your hand, right? This is good in trying to get your Super Laser Technicians, even your Veers, or you're going to see we have TIE Advance in this deck. You want to get things that kind of power up your units and allow you to kind of take control of the game. This is a good way to kind of search your deck and get to those units quicker. So maybe instead of 3 Veers, you go 3 Grand Moff Tarkin and you go 2 Veers. I think that might be a good split there. But again, Grand Moff Tarkin is very good in trying to get you the pieces that you need to be successful in this match. Next up, we have 2 AT-STs, right? It is a 6 cost, 6/7 with overwhelm. This works very good with the base that we're playing because we can go ahead and give it ambush. It can take out a unit, do the overwhelm damage, and then next turn do that again, right? And then essentially you might end up dying because of it, but you will get 2 overwhelm shots at the base, which is pretty good. And then also you're able to take out a couple of units with it. And again, it also works with Admiral Pilot. If you've already used your epic action, Admiral Pilot can give it the ability to attack when it comes in. So that's just really good value. And then Emperor Palpatine. Emperor Palpatine also has overwhelm. When played, deal 6 damage divided as you choose among enemy units, right? So you're able to, again, deal damage amongst any units, 6 damage, and then you have overwhelm if you're playing with Admiral Pilot, or like that's just another ambush unit to come out, deal massive damage, take out a unit, hopefully, and then deal the excess damage to the base. Now let's go ahead and get into our space units here. It's a little bit light, but still, I think it's effective. We're playing 3 TIE Fighters. It's just 1 cost, so it just gets them out quickly and try to get pressure on your opponent's base from space, right? The Imperial Interceptor is good because when played, you deal 3 damage to a space unit. Kind of gives you that ability to kind of control space, potentially, and then use this to, again, keep chipping away at your opponent's base. I played 3 TIE Advance. I think this might be a little too much, but I do want to try to see it as much as possible. But there are times when I draw 2 or 3 in my opening hand, which is quite rough. So I might want to drop this down to 2. But right now, 3 TIE Advance, when played, give 2 experience tokens to another friendly Imperial. Again, playing this at any point is not bad in this deck because everything in this is an Imperial. So you're able to kind of power up something, whether it be a subblock guard to kind of maintain the defensive aspect of things, or if you want to go ahead and add +2/+2 to Vader, or your bigger units like AT-ST, do the overwhelm damage. Same thing with Emperor Palpatine. This is a good way to go ahead and do that and keep pressure, whether it be in a defensive state of mind early game or late game when you want to just apply that damage, right? And then I played 2 Gladiator Star Destroyer. The reason I played this is that when it's played, it gives a unit Sentinel. So it's a good defensive card, and you can give it Sentinel as well. So if there's things happening in space, it's good to just drop it and then give it Sentinel, right? And it's just pretty good defensive card. There are other space units, right, that I should probably be playing, and I will be going over that later on in the video. But again, this is a deck list that I made to go up against, let's say, Leia or Sabine, where a lot of things that go on, they're just trying to flood the board with small units. And in matchup videos, I will be using other forms of this deck with the other deck list, but using the cards that I will be talking about later, right? Now, getting into our event cards here, we have Force Choke. Force Choke is very good. Yes, you do allow your opponent to draw a card, but it's still really good value because it's only a 2 cost, and you get to deal 5 damage to a non-vehicle unit. But if you have a Force unit, it's a 1 cost, which is really, really good. Being able to do 5 damage for cost of 1, and especially because you're going to be using this in the later game, if you're going to do the reduced cost anyway, with Vader or Emperor Palpatine, at that point of the game, you're trying to kind of finish it off as quick as possible at that point. So maybe them drawing the card isn't as bad as it may be early game, right? I play I Am Your Father mainly because it's a good way to take out your opponent's bigger units, but if they say no, you also get to draw 3 cards. So sometimes I'm just playing it mainly for the 3 cards, and I'm okay if my opponent says no, because again, I get to go through my deck and try to get the pieces that I need to kind of go throughout my game state and just kind of try to take over. I play 3 Overwhelming Barrage. This card is really powerful, really, really strong for a 5 cost. Give a unit +2/+2 for the phase, and then you get to deal the damage throughout your opponent's side of the board as you see fit. So you can, let's just say we have Emperor Palpatine, it got TIE Advance, and then this. So it ends up being a 10/10. You get to spread out 10 damage across the board. any way you see fit. So you can take out a unit for 3 damage, you can take out a unit for 4 damage, and you have another 3 damage to kind of throw out there, right? Let's just say that. And then you get to attack with that 10/10 unit, because it doesn't say exhaust the unit to do the damage. It just allows you to do that damage without exhausting the unit. Very strong card. It might be my favorite card in this entire game. I love this card. It's just a lot of fun. Again, it gives you the ability to control the board mid to late game, and it's just really good. Now, going right into our upgrades here, as expected, we're playing 3 Vader's lightsabers. When played, if attached to Darth Vader, you may deal 4 damage to a ground unit. Again, trying to ping and take out other opponents' units to kind of make it so they have nothing at the point where you can just start swinging into their base. And I play 3 fallen lightsabers. If attached to a 4th unit, it gains on attack, deal 1 damage to each ground unit and the defending person controls, right? So that's pretty good too. You just, again, keep doing the damage. You play a Vader's lightsaber and a fallen lightsaber on Darth Vader. It's really good. You're really starting to do damage because you're on attack. You're doing 2 damage. You're doing 3 damage to a unit because of this, right? And fallen lightsaber is not unique, so you can use more than 1 at a time. That's really good. Vader's lightsaber is unique, so you can only have 1 at a time. But fallen lightsaber, you can really start making your guys beefy because it gives you +3/+3. So it is pretty solid. That's going to do it for the deck list. Now going over the pros and cons of Darth Vader. Starting off with the cons, right? I guess if we go into the aggression decks, like the top tier ones like Leia and Sabine, this deck is just not as fast as those, but there are ways to go around that when going up against those decks. It's not necessarily a slow deck, but it's just not as fast as those decks, right? Another con I would say is that it has a high epic action cost at 7, and because of that, it makes it hard for you to get out Vader against those decks, right? Leia and Sabine and other fast decks like Boba Fett and stuff like that, right? But there are ways to kind of go about that, and if we get to the pros, one of the pros is that it does kind of get around that 7 cost pretty well. You have this combo where you can essentially try to get Vader out by turn 3, right? If you have resupplies in your decks and super laser technicians in your deck, and you're using the lab base, you can pretty much turn 2, you can play a resupply, and then after that, you can then use ambush on a super laser technician, and then get your other resupply up, and then you have Vader out on turn 3. So that is a way to go about that 7 cost. But the thing is that how reliable is that? How often is that going to happen? It's not a guaranteed thing. So there are times when you're stuck waiting till turn maybe 5 or 6 to get Vader out, and by then it could potentially be pretty bad. But as long as you can stabilize and kind of gain momentum back once you get Vader out, it'll be okay. But there are ways that this deck can go get around that high epic action cost. And then another pro is that it's good at taking out opponents' units, which is kind of the idea of control. So it's not a control deck as far as suspending your opponent units and delaying the game state and just delaying the game and letting you get to your ideal situation. You're kind of using the control in the aspect that you're going to be trying to take out opponents' units using cards like Vader's abilities, Vader's lightsaber, open fire, and stuff like that to deal damage to your opponent's units, to clear their board and make sure that you have a board. Even if it is just Vader at one point, that's still really strong and really powerful. So those are kind of the pros and cons I kind of see with this deck. And yeah, we'll kind of get into the units and cards that aren't on the deck list that you guys just saw, but we're going to talk about other cards that'll help this deck. Then we're going to go ahead and get into cards that I could see having a place in this deck that are really good, right? Starting off with Season's Shore Trooper, not bad. It gets +2/+0 when you have 6 or more resources. It's going to be, you're going to be trying to get as many resources as fast as possible in this deck. So Siege and Shore Trooper would be really good to have in this deck. I just don't have it at the moment. Emperor's Royal Guard, also really good. If you control an official unit, you get Sentinel. I went with Cell Block Guard over this because the guaranteed Sentinel is a little bit better. Yes, I understand that he does have 4 HP rather than the 3, but I do think that the Cell Block Guard for what I was trying to do with this deck currently is better for that. You can put in bigger space units and bigger vehicle units like Blizzard Assault AT-AT. You can put in Relentless and Devastator. If I'm playing against any other decks, like non-aggression decks, right, I'm probably playing Relentless and I'm probably playing Devastator, at least one of them. It's just in this scenario, I decided to kind of leave them out because I don't want to spend all of my resources at the end game for that. I kind of want to use my other events, equipment, and stuff like that against a faster deck. But against any other deck, definitely recommend Devastator. Really Relentless. Relentless is very key because the first event played by each of your opponents this round loses all of its abilities. So you make it so your opponent can't really use events late game when this comes out. Because if they're not, like, they get to the point where their hand size is really low and they only have one event at a time, they basically lose all capabilities of using that event. So Relentless is really good, especially late game. Continuing on here, we're gonna, I kind of like 97th Legion. I probably wouldn't play it so often, but maybe I'll just do it like for fun, right? I just think it's a fun card. Traitorous. I think it's a very fun card. Being able to take over an opponent's unit that's 3 or less cost is pretty unique. And then you can go ahead and use that unit to go ahead and attack his base or their units. Because if you end up using that unit to destroy another unit and they're both destroyed, it makes it so they have no way of getting it back. Because if they do destroy the upgrade, they do get that unit back. So I recommend taking over their unit and just swinging into one of their other units. Resupply. It's not in the deck list that I showed earlier, but resupply is really good in trying to get out Vader as quick as possible. And resupply is just another really good card. I just don't have it in that deck list for Vader, but I do use it when I play Vader in some points. Strike True is pretty good because you get to use a friendly unit to deal their power to an enemy unit, which is pretty good. It's only a 3 cost. So that's pretty good. Fifth Brother is another card I can see adding into this deck, mainly because with Vader, you're able to do small amounts of damage to Fifth Brother yourself, right? So you play down something that's villainous, and then villainy card, and then you go ahead and use Vader's ability. You ping Fifth Brother, and then you ping their base, and now Fifth Brother is already at raid 1, and then when he attacks, he takes another damage, does 1 damage to an opponent's unit. It has really good synergy. I think Fifth Brother works very well with Darth Vader. I think Ruthless Raider is also really good and worth considering putting in this deck, because when you play it, you deal 2 damage to an enemy base and 2 damage to an enemy unit, and when defeated, you do the same. So what you can end up doing, especially with the base that we play, right? You play this, you give it ambush, you're doing 2 damage to, let's just say, a space unit, and then 2 damage to an enemy base, right? And then you use this unit to swing into a space unit, and they take each other out, let's just say, right? You're doing 4 damage to things on the board. Actually, you don't have to do the 2 damage initially to the space unit if you're going to take it out. You can do 2 damage to a ground unit, and then you can go ahead and like deal the extra damage to the base because you take yourself out, and then you deal an extra 2 damage. So it's 4 damage to the base, 4 damage to an enemy unit. I just think it's really good value, and it's worth putting in the deck if you're not playing a defensive style of deck that I had initially, right? Continuing on here, Infiltrator skill, always good. Disabling Fang Fighter is good because you can defeat enemy upgrades, which I do think that upgrades have the ability to kind of like have big impacts on games. So getting rid of them are pretty good. Star Wing Scout's good because if when defeated, if you have initiative, you get to draw 2 cards. Draw power, always good. Force Throw is one of the newer cards. Choose a player. That player discards a card from their hand. If you have a force unit, you deal that damage to the opponent. That's really good, especially late game, because you can maybe have them discard their last card in their hand that they were maybe saving, and then they take the damage if you have a force unit. So that's pretty good. Precision fire, open fire, things like that. Precision fire, you're getting the extra saboteur on top of that. If it's a trooper, you're doing the extra damage. That's pretty good. Open fire, always doing 4 damage to a unit's pretty good. Keep fighting's good because you get to ready a 3 or lower unit, and then you can use it again to attack, so that's pretty decent. Maximum firepower is decent. Now, a friendly Imperial unit deals damage equal to its power, then another friendly unit deals damage equal to its power to the same unit. So if someone has an opponent that's really, really big, using this is really good because you can just deal a combination of 2 units power to an opponent, right? So let's just say you have a normal stormtrooper that has 3 power, and then you have General Veers, which is another 3 power, right? And your opponent has a 6 HP unit. You can go ahead and use this, use both of their power, take it out, and not have to really worry about it. So that's why it's pretty decent. The cards, I can see people like arguing, hey, this should be in the deck and stuff like that. Trust me, I understand, but the way that I built the deck list earlier is to kind of combat the speed of aggression decks. If I'm going up against other things, you're going to see me play a little bit more on the higher unit side. Maybe not like an extreme amount, but maybe adding 1 or 2 more bigger units and taking out a few other things and stuff like that. But going over Vader, now that's the end of the video. Vader is still a really good deck. He's not as fast as other aggression decks maybe, but he has the ability to really control the board and then start to take over games. He has that ability, which is unique, to get out super laser technicians into your resources faster than anyone else because he has the ability to do damage to his own units, and that's really good. Admiral Mahdi is another card I should have probably talked about, but being able to ping Admiral Mahdi and then get the ability to ready up a unit is really good. So let's just say you have Mahdi on the board, you have Darth Vader on the board, and he has an upgrade, right? So he's dealing 8 damage to something. He deals 2 damage to Mahdi. He readies up again, and he's able to deal 8 damage again. Not only that, he gets to deal the second 2 damage to an opponent's ground unit, or another unit. So it doesn't have to be ground, but you see what I'm saying here. Like, Mahdi is very good in getting more pressure to your opponent. So another card to keep in mind. But again, Vader is very good at controlling the board. It's a little bit slower than other aggression decks, but I think once you stabilize the early game and taking damage to your base, if your opponent wants to go that route, you can really start to take over. And that's what makes this deck a lot of fun, because you're just killing off your opponent's units and then taking over late game. If you guys enjoyed this deck list, make sure to subscribe down below, leave a like, and let me know who you guys want me to do next as far as leader goes. Because, again, we are going to be doing each leader leading up to the release of Star Wars Unlimited. We're really excited about this game. I want to thank everyone for the support so far on this journey here. We've hit 600 subscribers, and I couldn't do that without you guys, obviously. And I really do appreciate it. And on that note, we're going to go on and get out of here, and I'll see you guys in the next video.